on the autism spectrum or from the perspective of the family members. Because I think we as professionals can learn so much from hearing from the other side of the table, that perspective of living with autism. And so I'm gonna take some time here. I really want this to be kind of informal, just a conversation between us and the panel here. So they did get information ahead of time on the types of questions we're going to ask, so that they can be thinking and really considering what's going to be really helpful to us as parents and professionals to learn from their experience as well. So I'm going to start our conversation off. If each of you would take a moment just to introduce yourselves, tell us your name, where you're from, and a little bit about you or your child. So I'll give it over to you.
Well, I'm Michelle Lamson. I'm from, I live in Washburn, Wisconsin, about 6 blocks from the shore of Lake Superior. Yes, it's gorgeous. You guys got to come visit sometime. I have 2 children, a 20-year-old son who is moderately autistic and has some intellectual, handicaps. And then I have a 15-year-old daughter who is mildly autistic, and she is severely hearing impaired since birth. And she's the one I'm mainly, when I answer questions, I'm mainly going to be referring to because there's a particular emphasis that I want to make.
My name is James Williams. I am an adult self-advocate with autism. I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, and I travel around the country to give presentations on autism at a wide variety of different events. I'm also the author of several books related to autism that I am going to be selling after the panel. We all have to support ourselves somehow, but I'm here to talk about what it's like to have autism, but not just what it's like to have autism, but what are some of the different issues that people with autism have in different parts of America? Because one of the things I've learned when I travel is that every state provides services differently. Every state treats their residents with autism differently. And traveling has really given me a perspective on the fact that, autism is such a behavioral disorder, and every state has different types of people, different values people might have. And if you really want to take a look at autism, you can't just look at the behaviors at face value. You have to look at how people in your community, in your neighborhood, are viewing the behaviors of a person with autism and how that impacts their existence. So thank you, and I'm really honored to be on this panel today.
Off on my phone, and that's my alarm to pick up my son from school, because this is our first week of school, so I'm Rosalie Toko, and I am parent of Nicholas and Joseph. Nicholas is the child that brings me here. He has autism, classic autism, and so this really threw me off, I'm sorry. I hope someone's picking him up in Bayside, Wisconsin. Otherwise I should get up and drive and get him now. And I am also a consultant with Aspire Education Consulting, and I specialize in parent mentoring. I don't speak in front of audiences very often. I'm more of a listener and an observer, so this is a little bit of a challenge for me, so I hope you'll just be understanding and gracious. So Nicholas is 18, he has classic autism, he's had a boatload of intervention, and he's a 5th-year senior at Nicolay High School and is doing very well for himself considering the depth and breadth of his challenges.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today and sharing your stories. but giving each of you a chance to share, if you'd like, about a specific situation where there were some social struggles. And if you can talk a little bit about what were the supports that you had or your child had. What worked, what didn't, what would have made it better in that particular situation. And I will ask just for volunteers if you would like to share your story.
So I asked Nick this question, so I don't really want to only bring my voice to this conversation, but his also. And he reports that he is unaware of any social struggles. So perhaps there's something protective about his perspective. But I have been able to observe him a lot in the school setting because I was the parent volunteer in the cafeteria and on the playground. And one thing that I observed early on is that he would walk the peripheries of the playground, scripting and monologuing and acting out his whatever was going on in his head. I talked to the school about that, and they said, oh, kids need that time. They need that time to be themselves and blow off steam, and that's true to some extent. I also asked Nick in a roundabout way, hey Nick, and so not a direct ask and not all at once, but as part of an ongoing longer conversation. How are things going on the playground? Sometimes I see you over there. And he said, and I wanted to capture this quote, and this was in middle school, so years ago, he said, I just walk around by myself like an idiot. So he's very aware that something that he's doing, that he was doing was different, and that was an expression of wanting to really, I walk around by myself like an idiot, wanting to make a connection, but not knowing how. So we have always, my husband and I have always maintained that for our child at least, recess is the hardest class. So I could have used more support from the school in nurturing those social skills and making connections among his peers and himself. So that's the social challenge that I've witnessed, among some others, but that's the biggest one I wanted to bring, especially to the teachers.
One challenge that was pretty apparent growing up was the issue of never understanding throughout my educational career many of the unwritten rules that other kids expected me to know, but very few adults or even teachers or social workers knew. And one of the things that I think people forget is that, while the teacher is in charge of the classroom, while the principal might be in charge of the school, teachers do not have authority over the social order of their school. Every school has a social order that is governed by the students that determines who's popular, who isn't, who's accepted, and who isn't. And one mistake that is often made, and this mistake I saw made a lot by my teachers, is that teachers often will try to impose their social ideology when helping students with autism find friends, not realizing that the real way you help kids with autism with social issues is by finding out what the social order is and working with it. I remember once when in high school, I had the luxury of having a girl become my friend and coach me on social issues. And I told her about how I was required by my IEP to learn social skills from a social worker who knew nothing about the social order of my high school. And I said to her, what can I do? to understand how to fit in. And she said, well, the first thing is don't listen to a word that social worker tells you, because she has no idea how the social order works and never will if she's not willing to listen to the other students. And there were certain infractions I made that the teachers were oblivious to. For example, like many other kids with autism, I enjoyed and still enjoy going swimming. I'm sure we hear a good deal about, look for water if you have a kid that elopes and all that. Well, I enjoyed swimming. Well, I got into a lot of trouble when I was in high school inviting friends to go swimming. My friend explained to me that there was an unwritten rule that it was actually a high social crime to invite a friend to go swimming.
Weird.
When she explained to me why it was a high social crime, however, I no longer broke the rule. But no teacher told me that. One other thing, too, that needs to be acknowledged, too, is that not only did I have issues understanding unwritten rules, one thing that we really have a hard time accepting, but every kid with autism learns this in school, kids with autism are treated differently than kids without autism. There are some things that teachers consider acceptable if you are neurotypical, but do not consider acceptable if you're autistic. And oftentimes we do not realize those double standards exist. And I remember learning that double standard when I very innocently asked a girl who was in special ed alongside me to homecoming. I was lectured and disciplined so much by my teachers for daring to ask a girl out on homecoming. What I learned was that at my high school, it is a high crime for a child with autism, a boy with autism, to ask a girl out for homecoming. They didn't care that the typical boys were asking girls, but this was a high crime, and every boy with autism who asked a girl out to homecoming was disciplined for it. And so the biggest social issues I had were not only understanding unwritten rules, but realizing that there were double standards at play, and I had to abide by them if I was going to survive socially at my high school.
I liked hearing what you two had to say because it helped me focus and, add to your two examples. My son, Anakin, yes, I'm a very big sci-fi fan. My son, Anakin, the biggest social thing with him was kind of along the lines of what James was saying, in that he's not antisocial, but he chooses when he wants to be social. And that was very